And good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone, wherever you're joining us from. As I understand, quite wide range of geographical locations. And my name is Cengiz Turkoglu. I'm the VP Technical in International Federation of Airworthiness. And this is actually our third online webinar. Which we aim to invite some influential industry speakers for them to share their experience. So today's speaker is Hans Meyer, and Hans is currently the Quality and Training Manager at Lufthansa Technik, and also the President of the European Aviation Maintenance Training Committee. So he'll tell you a little bit about that organization, and also he's representing in EASA stakeholder advisory body, which is actually a decision-making body. Also, I know Hans from the EASA Human Factors Collaborative Analysis Group, which we do some collaborative work, which we then try to influence the decision makers. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Hans, but one quick comment is please do share your thoughts. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat line, and Hans will give a presentation to start with, but we will certainly have an opportunity to interact and actually ask questions. And considering the numbers, I guess we can make it more of a sort of a meeting style. People can actually join the conversation by literally sharing their thoughts rather than typing everything in. So I'll still, please try to put your hand up or let us know if you want to say something during the Q&A session. So Hans, over to you. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Cengiz. Thanks a lot. And thank you also for the invitation. Cengiz mentioned it all already, you know, where I am active, what I'm doing. Just a little bit more to my personal background. I'm about 40 plus years in aviation. Started as an engineer, working on the aircraft directly myself, went via training, being an instructor, quality manager in different positions. And now I'm here representing EAMTC, and I'm very proud of this because this is one of the long-standing associations. We started actually quite early, and I'd like to give you a brief introduction why we did it and where we started. So we started when you, that's the moment, I need to get my screen moving. Here we go. We started actually in the 80s already. Reason for this was at the time it started with the JAAs and in the European structure. And at that time I was in a training organization, and we were looking at each other and said, our national airworthiness authorities do it one way, EASA writes it the other way, or JAA at the time. So we were actually sitting together and say, how do we cope with the situation and join forces in best practice manner? And finally, in 2007, we established the association with the objective, you know, to improve safety through training, so to share our best practice and also to represent the industry to EASA, but also to the authorities. And we are a multinational organization or associations, and we share mutual goals. So when you look at it, we have 100 plus members today. Even pandemic took some toll. On the other hand, some new members joined, so we are still stable here, which I'm very proud of. And actually, we're looking forward. Next week we have our first general assembly. We have it twice a year in Amsterdam, where we discuss and interact and network, and it will be a first hybrid meeting. So far we're bridging the time with virtual meetings, but now we will meet face to face, and we have 50 plus participants coming to Amsterdam, which is good for networking, for exchanging and having a look at the situation as it is right now and looking forward. So we are international, we are independent. You saw it maybe on the member side. We have members from US as well as we have members from China. So it's going actually all around the world. Everybody is more or less connected with EASA. and all my greetings to Down Under. Sometimes CASA is also coming to our conferences, which I'm very proud of, and exchange there, and we work together on different topics already. So our commitment is to promote safety, as I said before, with best practice and working with the authorities. And what we are working on is trying to offer solutions. So we have guidance and recommendation material developed from our members. And this guidance and recommendation material we also use when we discuss it, with, let's say, with the ASA, when we are participating in rulemaking tasks, and it's distributed within our members, and is a publication we base on. So when Cengiz asked me to be here to give a presentation, I was having a look at your homepage, and I was really taken by this, because this is where I think, you know, we are very close to each other now. We are also passionate about airworthiness, because, you know, this is what all counts, and we must be fit to fly. Exactly. And frontline improving, as well as eternal vigilance. This is really what I like most. This is what is driving us. And as I said, we started in the 80s, and we are still going strong, and talking to our members. They are still looking forward and say, listen, there's still a lot to do, especially when you look at the changes which we have, let's say, in front of us. When we look at our technology, when we look at the way maintenance will develop, when we look at what will be coming next, I think this is something which will never stop. So we will always stay alerted, active, and we need to form what is ahead of us. And just to give you a brief introduction, Kathy is also one of the members in the Human Factor Collaborative Analysis Group. And some of you may remember this picture from the EASA Safety Conference, and I got the permission from Kathy to use it, because it just simply shows that since the 60s, we have a significant development in, let's say, procedures, technology, and we keep on moving on from a normal to an advanced, from an advanced to a more advanced to a new normal. And when you look at the digital transformation, which is going on, and you saw it maybe at the CISA presentation as well, you know, digital processing goes not linear. We have had a discussion not long ago with the aviation psychologist, and the aviation psychologist, when they made the analysis, they said, you know, when you look at how things going, sometimes people could have with the knowledge at the time, you know, they could be going like time traveling later, and they could still accommodate themselves in this new time. But right now, digital development has speeded up, and it goes really in jumps, and it goes significantly. And this will have definitely an impact to us. So when we look at the aircraft mechanics, you know, we know the aircraft mechanics, especially when it comes to the EASA regulations, you know, the aircraft mechanics is qualified, he got his diploma, he got his license, he got everything in the hand, whether it's FAA, whether it's Australian license, whether EASA license, you know, we have all our regulations where we are looking at. And as everybody who has worked on an aircraft knows this, you know, we are proud of what we are doing. We are proud whether we change a wheel or whether we sit in the cockpit and deal with a computer. We are covering the technology range. We are covering the work, and we make sure at the end of the day, when we raise our thumb to the pilot, this thing is flying and this is working. And it's a coincidence, you know, that this picture shows only one pilot. So right now we have two pilots. We know in the past we had three guys sitting in the cockpit, but as we have the discussion ongoing right now, we know that, you know, the next thing might be the one pilot aeroplane. And after this, we might have drones, VTOLs, no pilot at all. And I keep on telling EASA and whoever wants to listen or not to listen, and say, listen, maintenance becomes more and more important. I come to this a moment later, but in the past, you know, we have had a paradigm. The paradigm was, and I'm jumping really back now in time. The paradigm in the past was, when you look at the Super Constellation, it had 4 engines. You remember? 4. And it was told to be the best 3-engine operating aircraft in the sky. Why? Because always one engine shut down. right? And I have an advertisement, actually, I ordered it, right? I found it in internet. It's a historical advertisement. And there is the devil sitting on the wing holding actually two props. And the pilot says, thumb up says, don't you worry, you know, we fly this aircraft safe even with two engines. So the image of the pilot is no matter what the maintenance is doing, you know, we get it fixed in air. We operate safely. I trust this. I believe in this. I'm flying safely. But in the future, we have only two engines and we have more or less a flying computer. And this is where we are heading to. So when we look at the considerations, and again, I share this with Kathy, you know, we have more and more information in flight deck, and they are coming from computers and setups and from the ground and everywhere. We have more and more procedures, whether they're in airspace or for maintenance. We have more and more automated systems. And we have a philosophical discussion going on. Some OEMs tell us, all right, you know, the computer will give you in the predictive maintenance the solution, and the mechanic just needs to be able to read the screen and do the right action. I doubt this. Automated systems are programmed by humans. Automated systems are therefore also topic, or let's say the result of human performance and of human understanding. And I believe, you know, we need to understand how the system is operating and the system is working. I believe we need to know how a system can be monitored and how we need to manage the situations. So in order to thumb up for the pilot, for his flying computer, the maintenance needs to understand to cope with it. And I believe that we do not have less requirements for manual flight or skills. We have no less requirements. We will have still the need to handle these things. And there is not a binary choice that's written here, manual and automated. We have more and more transversal activities. We have more and more situations where the computer is even engaged when you believe you're flying in manual. Unfortunately, we have two proofs of this with the 737 MAX. And this is simply the situation. And therefore, when I look forward and I'm looking at maintenance, and when I'm looking at training and maintenance, right? I see that what we have is technology and innovation is going forward. And I see that we need to have knowledge and skills aligned with it. And right now, actually, Cengiz just mentioned the human factor group at the EASA, but we have a global risk index, or we have now a safety issue performance index or priority index. And we have had a look at this already in 2017. And we were saying, actually, when technology and innovation is progressing, and we look at the way training is delivered in some of the areas, then we have a question mark whether training effectiveness and finally the competence achieved through training at the end is really matching what is going on in the technological in the innovation development. So this is just an open question, and it's not only limited to maintenance. So we have had discussed, and we keep on discussing these questions in all domains. We talk about it when it comes to pilot training, when it comes to ATC training, when it comes to ground handling or maintenance training. So all four domains are engaged, and we have right now actually a safety issue assessment running to find out, are we on the right track? Are we doing the right things? And maybe where do we need to pay an extra eye on it? So looking forward, this is when you look at maintenance next generation, to come back to the topic I have in focus. Now we talk about descriptive maintenance for the time when we started with it. Then we came to diagnostic maintenance, and it was always going on and say, all right, you have then your task cards, you have your aircraft maintenance manual. Now the next thing is predictive maintenance. This is the next challenge where we go with sophisticated data analytics. And last but not least, everybody wants to come to prescriptive maintenance. Why? I show you in a second, because there were some guys out there telling us, you know, this makes utilization of aircraft safer, but also more efficient. And what has it to do actually when it comes to, let's say, maintenance? When you look, for this jump here, when you look at the complexity level of knowledge-based maintenance, in my belief and in belief of some of my colleagues, we say really you need to have a training which makes you understand these elements, and it needs to have a look at where maintenance is going to, and this it needs also to take it into consideration how we deal with it. So we were mentioning competence, and this is my keyword in here. I come to this in a moment. So when we say here, in a sense, prescriptive maintenance will not only let you know when something happened, it needs to be fixed, but it will suggest how to resolve it. And this is when you go on YouTube, when you go on the OEM. No criticizing of the OEMs right now, but they tell you, okay, we have more and more data and we will support the maintenance. And I believe in it. But I also believe that the maintenance guy at the end who raises the thumb to the pilot, he needs to understand what's going on because he needs to judge what's going on. So just to give you an idea, when I was an instructor in the beginning, we had one aircraft out from an OEM, which was, let's say, one of the first ones with a lot of programming inside and with the displays. And when the aircraft was sitting on the ground, this aircraft screens were full of messages. Clear. Why? Because it was programmed and it was designed to show no failure when it's in a normal condition. But what is normal for an aircraft? Normal for an aircraft is flying, gears up, everything is working fine. Then of course you had a blank screen. But you, from the maintenance, when you come to the aircraft, is sitting on the ground, partially not powered, partially, definitely not working. So everything was shown on the screen, and to dig out between this amount of messages here really what was the problem and to fix it, that was the challenge. And you as a maintenance expert, you had to understand how to read that stuff. So that was in the beginning. Sure, we have improved now, but I'm sure in the long run we will still have the problem that we need to be on the understanding what's going on. So when we look forward, I also have had a look at it. I also was having a look at artificial intelligence and the roadmap. And of course, it looks forward. And then we have had this statement, which everybody was jumping on. This statement you find here and says, wow, predictive maintenance can increase aircraft availability by up to 35%. And all the investors and all the operators said, wow, that's cool. But maintenance is considered to be costs. Remember, we are not investment, we are costs. And so just the next thought was, oh, right, this is less maintenance needed. This is less training needed. So this is the discussion I keep on hearing. But this statement, somebody oversee this little one here, this little figure. This was done with all the respect by a university. Good. So next week, when we have our EAMTC conference in Amsterdam, we will have another statement from the University of Delft in Europe, and they are doing a lot of research also on new technology. And there the professor will say, predictive maintenance has some challenges, and you better be aware of these challenges when you look forward to it. So I'm really interested in hearing Bruno Santos' presentation next week and work with him, to find out where we need to be aware. Next topic is, and this is where the loop closes to our safety issue assessment. In the EPAS 21-25, we already were saying right now, we have training effectiveness. This is actually the safety issue, which we put forward in 2017. We said, we do have technological advances. We have industry safe and more efficient working, and we have a lot of things going on, but we also saw that training has not changed significantly. And this is why we put a question mark on, are we still fit for the future? Are we doing the right things? And this is why we started for exactly this now, this training effectiveness and competence safety issue assessment now this year. And it, as I said in the beginning, it will be cross-domain. It's not only maintenance, but EAMTC will take care of the maintenance part in it. going a little bit back what we are doing right now and why Cengiz and I, we were coming to the idea, that I give a presentation here. When we look right now at the current situation of EASA basic training, we have a lot of modules. It's hour-based training. It's frontal teaching mainly. It's has quantified and standardized learning experience. And well, it's following basically what you all know from your time when you were sitting in school. So it's highly regulated. But as we discuss it in EAMTC and as we look at the technology and the innovations, we say, hey, we need to shift from quantity to quality. We need to focus more on the students. It's not just the tick box. It's not just the multiple choice exam. And we have not discussed it only in maintenance, we also discussed it in pilots training. So we have some proof that even if you come along with a valid license, a current valid license, and whether it's a pilot or a maintenance license, and you go with your operator to your competency assessment, which is needed in order to get an authorization from your company. A lot of these guys fail to show, even they are current and even with the license, they show that they can perform according to the standards which are required. So this made us think, and they said, we need to do something here. We need also, and this is what gave us, let's say, pandemic as a clear impact and clear in a quick learning, we said we need to look at new teaching technologies. And now we had to learn it the hard way. We were discussing this in EASA in 2016 already. And we have had some suggestions, but at the time it didn't went through to the European Commission because there were other priorities set at the time, and we are still working on. And we have had a look at the framework of generic skills, right? So we need to look what are, let's say, when you just imagine you do your license. I have a license. I did the license way before EASA was founded. It's still valid because of my grandfather rights, right? But I'm not current anymore. I'm not recent anymore, right? And it must be, it's my personal, even if I come with this license today to a company, I need to say, listen, guys, I'm not current. Even though I have a license, it's valid. It's no worries. But I need to update my knowledge. I need to have an attitude. I need to have a generic skill. I need to be, let's say, retrained on this one. And that's one thing. And the other thing, what we are looking at it, also learned hard through the pandemic way. All of the sudden, our basic training schools were not capable of sending the students anymore to airlines because there was short-time work. Nobody was flying. There was no room for doing practical skills. So actually, quite of our basic training schools were sending the students to other industries because we were looking at the same type of competencies. So we came up with a competence profile of our guys, and other industries says, okay, this part we need as well. So you can practice here or you can practice there. So in our belief, we need to find a way for cross-train with other industries. And right now, aviation is still suffering from pandemic. So many companies lay off people, clearly. And with some of the plans, you lay off the wrong guys, you lay off the young guys because the older guys have a higher hierarchy or they stay longer. But I'm sure aviation comes back, and it comes back strong and with this new technology. And how do we attract other people? So we also need to attract other people from other industries, and we have to have a look at complementary competencies when we look there, and maybe have these guys also faced in and not send them through the whole program again. We need to have the chance to give there some credits as well. Also, we need to teach about the anticipation to learn faster in the changing circumstances and the technologies. I was working with the University of Darmstadt, and we have had a look at it. We made a study with our engineers, and it's called knowledge work. It's not called knowledge management. Knowledge management may be the data base you're looking at. It's knowledge management. It's the ability of the technician, the ability of the professional to understand where are their limitations, and when they have a problem, to stop, go to the right reference field, get the right information, update their inputs, and then continue working. Not just she'll be right, might, and push it on, No, stop it, verify it, and move on. And this is an attitude you need to have. This is a standing you need when you are on the aircraft. Everybody who was working on the aircraft knows the situation. You have a full aircraft sitting behind you. You have the captain in front of you. You have your manager on the side, and they ask you, hey, why is this thing not flying? Haven't you fixed it yet? Where is the CRS, to let it go? And you need to say, stop. I need to fix the problem first, and then I give the CRS. And this is an attitude and a self-confidence, and also the ability to stand up for that one. But nevertheless, we also look at cost reduction. It always today, nothing is paid from the sky. We need to have a look and say, okay, when we look, especially when we have people coming from other industries, from other complementary competencies available, which they can prove, we need not to send them through the full channel. We say, okay, this part, you can prove with a competence assessment. So this is covered. So you need only this aviation specific element maybe. And therefore we talk about self-paced learning paths as well. How do we do this? Looking once more back at the program, these are the modules you need to follow. And we were comparing this to what is written in competence. It's not only skills and knowledge, which is covered in the modules, it's also looking at the attitude. And this is what one of our basic training institutes already put in there. They are working actively on setting up a complete new system. And this complete new system is putting self-reflection of the student already in basic training into consideration. So they focus on it. They need to, as we say, generic professional base doing the job, being on time, being responsible, being sure with the tools, share it and talk it with my colleagues when I'm not sure or when I have a problem. Do I make mistakes when I do them? Do I make them open to learn from them, to avoid them the next time, right? And will I focus on what I'm doing? So we are already empowering this, so this basic training, and we are looking right now, when we look forward, we have a pilot project running within the EAMTC and say, hey, how can we convert this rigid system here, or how can we support this rigid system to go forward to focus more on competencies. So this is a project which we are running right now, and we're taking competence elements into consideration. So reflecting on the progress is also something which is going through all this whole process. I don't know how I get this bar away, by the way, Cengiz, so I don't know. Yeah, I can shift it to the next one. Reflection of, sorry, learned something, thank you. Put it away. So reflection on the progress is something what is important also, and it comes again and again through the whole learning path when we do it already in basic training. We are not at type training for the time being. We think this attitude, this basic attitude and skills, they must be set already in basic training, and it must be kept up alive throughout the working life within the companies. Of course, we have continuation training, but as Cengiz mentioned in the beginning, we have the human factor trainings, and we need to have a look at this and say, hey, maybe we need to add something over there, or maybe we need to reflect better on it. But in order to have an understanding for it, we already set the roots when it comes to basic training. And we do right now, as I said, this pilot project to refine it new. Where do we actually focus on? We started actually with the ICAO framework for aircraft maintenance, and there were already some competences in there mentioned, and we have, this was, let's say, something where we have had the first look, but we were also actively participating in defining the ICAO manual on competency-based training and assessment for aircraft maintenance personnel. So one of our members was representing EAMTC with the support of the working group behind him, and this is has been published just, I guess, 4 weeks ago in the first edition now from ICAO. And we were very early already having this element in there. And one who is in the call as well, Mick McGill, he was also active in the working group. So if you have any content question, I was not in the working group. I will count on you, Mick, when it comes to it. So, but this is on the elements we already included when we are now in our pilot project active. And when we do now a redefinition, how we do it, we have also our NIAs participating in there, and we go step by step, because at the end of the day, of course, we will not rewrite EASA regulation, but we may have alternative means of compliance where we can go as well and get support on that way. But we believe that a rigid system must have, let's say, an open door when it comes to develop competencies. And this is where we need to have a look at, and this is where we're fighting for when we want to be safe, when we look forward. Because we see this is the actual situation, and we have cobots, we have smart tools. We talk about Internet of Things, big data, digital twin, maintenance information system. Everything is mingling, and we have more and more data we are working with. Yesterday, I was talking with some guy, and they come now, they want to revolutionize in-flight entertainment system with a new connectivity way. And I was talking to him and say, okay, is this network you will setting up in the aircraft, is this completely disconnected? Is it independent, as it has no influence to the aircraft security? And he says, yeah, it's completely independent. Besides, I get some data in here. Okay, when I have data that way, I have always a smart hacker who goes that way. So we need to make sure that security is there. We need to make sure that it's all understood when we are having complex systems working. And who knows what will come next? We don't know. Something will come, but we are sure there will be some more development coming, because we have a lot of smart people out there, and we have a lot of different possibilities which we can execute with the computers. So cut the long story short, we need to join forces. Schools, OEMs, authorities, MROs, we need to join forces when we want to develop competence. We need to stay in touch. We need to stay in exchange. We need to look at the needs. We were, for example, for a long time, we were discussing, do we need a safety management system in the 147 in the aviation schools? And said, well, safety management system in the 147 schools, this doesn't really make sense. But we need the output from the safety management system of the 145. And we need a clear analysis there to have an input into our training, to make sure that we amend in the training, that we add in the training what we have found out here. And we need the support from the authorities. In the morning today, there was something like digitalization in aviation world from EASA, this webinar in the morning. So we were talking about how we support our guys. So they are not looking at their papers anymore. They look in their computer, but how you make sure you have the right data over there, that it's not corrupted or whatsoever. And this all must be, of course, in the bubble with the OEMs, because they sell the aircrafts. They are sitting actually on the IP rights in some cases, as we know, and we need to find a way, to make investment pay off. Totally clear. Otherwise, there will be no more investment. But at the same time, we need to find a way to make operation sure. And operation sure means, we need some data, we need some information, and we need to find a way to go together. And this is what we all try in EAMTC, as our stakeholders are also represented by these 4 groups. So we have training schools, basic and type training schools. We have OEMs in there, we have MROs in there. Aviation regulatory bodies are not allowed to become members, but they're always our guests, and we have them always participating in our conferences, and we stay in touch with them and involve them also in our working groups, which is possible. So to sum it up, we are out there for quite some time. We started to come together. We keep on working, and we try to keep on working in the long run. And even as the old saying by Henry Ford, I still like it, and I still go with this forward. So that's the end of my short presentation of what we are doing right now, what is driving us, and where we are heading to.
Right. Hans, thanks ever so much. Really fascinating and also thought-provoking and challenging presentation. So I'm actually looking at the sort of chat line. There aren't any specific questions. I've got loads of questions, but I'd rather not straight. I'd rather give the opportunity to the participants. Is there anyone who would like to just basically unmute and share thoughts, ask questions? Feel free. So as we low numbers, I think we can easily make it happen. Hi, John.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I'll unmute. There we go. Well, good morning. Well, it's good
morning.
afternoon, isn't it? Thank you, Hans, for an excellent presentation. And I agree with every single word that you've said. Do you see new, you know, we still have the old sort of domains, don't we really? You know, you have a mechanic, an avionics specialist. Do you see new forms of specialization arising? And then should we orientate those the training towards those new forms of specialization? You know, like a data analyst, for example, that is a specialization, isn't it, really? Do you see that sort of thing changing the framework as well as being, you know, competency? It seems motherhood and apple pie, competency-based training. We've been talking about it for a long, long time, you know, but it's moving so slowly, you know.
Yeah, totally agree.
Do you agree?
Yeah. And I tell you, when we introduced this project, New Training Standards, this EAMTC project within the EAMTC community, there were several members who had really significant fear and said, wow, this costs more money, this makes it more complex, this is more difficult to develop and to bring it forward, you know. I mean, this is hard to handle and everything. And this is why we are sitting in our project and doing this Lighthouse project right now and showing and giving it an example. And we start with the basic training for the time being, because it's easier for us right now to work on it. And basically, we have also already quite some development in there. And I also agree, you know, we are working closely with the pilots together. So I'm working with a pilot association, and pilots are more advanced in this. But pilots also, when they have the competency element, they have also a simulator. They can come up with a complex situation. And if you send up a complex situation on the maintenance, you know, you're already having a difficulty, you know, because nobody would sitting an aircraft over there and build in some error over there so that your maintenance guy can fix a complex problem. So this is already, and with the new technology 787, it's not like in the past, you pull just the circuit breaker to simulate there's a malfunction. You pull a circuit breaker, you may shut down the whole system. So that's one element. But coming back to your first question, you know, specialities and things, I think we have new breeds, as you see, which are developing. Data analysts, definitely. The guy who is doing this digital twin, he has maybe never worked on an aircraft, right? And to be honest, you know, quite sometimes I'm discussing with guys from EASA, and they are data analysts, and they talk about maintenance. And look at I lost all my hair having these discussions, because they don't even know what they're talking about. You know, with all their respect, they have a very good approach to it, but it's so difficult. And I believe on two things, and I'm sure about this. You know, we will have the specialists coming up, but we need always somebody who is overlooking the whole system, who is cross-domain qualified, who has the competence and says, I understand an aircraft from the technical side. And what was for me, I'm avionics myself in the past, you know, and I was always, let's say, when I did the lecturing, also when I was working, I was always steering up the guys and said, hey, you know one, you know all, you know, they're all flying, they all have a flight director, they all have an autopilot, they all follow the same processes. The only thing you need to know is how the system interact with each other, and you need to look at the right aircraft maintenance manual, to figure out whether it's right. Because you might have the gyro included, or you might have the gyro excluded, or you might have this data program running, or you might have this reset button over there. So you need to understand it. And I'll never forget when I was lecturing in China, I made the guy say, okay, you go through a test routine for this particular system. And the guy went, and at the end, there was a query question. It was written, did you see this on the display? And he just pressed yes, and then said, test passed. And he looked at me proudly and said, passed. And I said, okay, what did you test? I test the system. What indication did you look at? What do you mean indication? There was a question. Show me where you looked at. So the guys really were totally understanding the system. They understand the logic, but they didn't understand the overall interconnection, right? And coming to this, we will have specialists and we need to train these specialists, but we will have the interconnecting link who is hooking up these specialists that at the end we have a safely operating aircraft. And I think this is the moment when it comes to maintenance, because at the end of the day, the guy who is last on the aircraft, I never forget this, I was the main mechanic on the aircraft. I was the releasing mechanic, and I had a problem because the indication did not match according to test equipment did not match with what was written in the maintenance manual. And I called in engineering and I said, hey, you are the smart ass over here. Come over, tell me what's going wrong here. And he couldn't figure it out. And then at the end, he said to me, oh, Hans, you can sign it off. It shall be all right. And I said, no, if you believe it's right, you sign it. And guess what? He walked away. Right. So yeah. I strongly believe we will have more and more specialists. And as I showed you in the previous picture, there will be specialists in different domains doing the cobots, doing the programming of the system, doing the data analysis. But at the end of the day, somebody needs to say, okay, this thing is fit for flying. And this is where maintenance comes together. And yes, we will have different streams.
You've also, I think, highlighted an interesting human factors point there. Digital information is very compelling. You want to believe it, even when it's wrong. So you have to have a mentality, a questioning mentality, because it's so compelling. You really want to believe it. And I think that's driven, that's led a lot of people astray sometimes, by believing something that was wrong. I don't know how you deal with that, by the way.
This is, in my understanding, it's definitely something which came up as a threat with the pandemic. You have these guys, please, no judgment, I'm just giving examples. You have these people who get vaccinated, and you have these people who say, I don't get vaccinated because of. I have it in my own family. Parts are vaccinated, and somebody who is very close to me says, no, I'm not getting vaccinated. I was looking in Instagram and it was written, and I said, why do you think that Instagram, this has the level of a coffee talk or a beer talk? Why do you think that these people are more honest than what it's written by, let's say, on the sides of institutes and on universities? Why? And this is an emotional element. I was in the past when we were talking about new technology. One of my customers said once to me, Hans, we make a technology jump from an old aircraft philosophy to a new aircraft philosophy, and your task is to assure that the people can handle this new technology safely. So I was digging deep into what could be the fear of people. How can you overcome fear of doing things not right? And the only way to overcome fear is when you have competence. You must be able to act with your knowledge and your skills, and you must have the self-confidence that you do it in the right way. And then you need to give them guidance to the hand, whether it's in the beginning a checklist, where they can go along, or whether you give them some abilities, and they need to build up competence. And this needs also confidence in what I'm doing. And at the same time, I mentioned before, we have this momentum of knowledge work. You know, you need to know where your limits are. You know, when it comes to the moment when you say, I'm not completely sure, you should not say it shall be right. You should say, stop, I verify this in the sake of safety. So it's a complex way, and it's not like you do it once for the lifetime when you're in basic training. You keep on doing it on and on and on. And this is why we have continuation training. This is why we have human factor training.
Yeah, fascinating. Are there any other contributions, thoughts to be shared, or any other questions from the audience? Frank?
Yes, Hans, an excellent presentation, and I agree with everything that you say, but a fundamental problem is the human brain. Because the human brain naturally wants to put things in boxes.
Yeah.
Therefore, you get avionics engineers, you've got mechanics, you've got, and it's very difficult for them to step outside that boundary.
But
The
you need
only
to.
way you can do it, I think, and I think you're thinking the same way as me, is to have an overreaching under some group within the maintenance organization that has an overreaching understanding of the total system on the aircraft.
Yep.
And we're miles away from that today, miles away from it.
But it shall not make us stop fighting for it, Frank.
Oh, no, we have to do it. We have to do it. But it's the route, thinking out the route as to how we're going to get to it.
The point is really, you know, it's, as you said, it's a psychological problem, right? Yep. And we are humans, and sometimes we fall back to, let's say, human behavior. And I mean, when you have fear, or when you are not having the right one, then you're just like paralyzed, and either you don't move or you do something wrong.
Yeah.
And we need, and this is part of the self-reflection process, we need to make people understand about their limitations. We need to make people understand that we have a part in the brain. When this is triggered, this part in the brain, it blocks the access to all what you know and what you are able of. Yes. So we need to we need to make this clear, and we need to make people understand how they can overcome this, right? And this is what I meant. This is these elements within the competence. These are complex, and I understand, you know, that schools who make their money, with all due respect, you know, just fulfilling the tick boxes, say, wow, how can I achieve this one? But I think there is no alternative way. We need to go and find a way to fix this problem, or then we go, there could be the other extreme, you know, which is also discussed in the industries, to say, all right, you have a specialist for each section, you know, and at one stage you fit it together. But I may recall, you know, with all due respect, we have had a huge innovative aircraft built not too long ago, and it was done by different specialists. And when they put the tubes together, they found out it didn't match. You may know the first 8 aircrafts had to be cross-wired and so on, because they didn't go together. And I agree with what you said, Frank. At the end of the day, you need to have somebody who has the full picture under control, and he will use experts. That's clear. But at the end of the day, when it comes to the aircraft, you need to understand the full picture. And John, I fear if they only believe on data, they must also have something in there which fixes the data or puts them in question.
Yeah. A questioning mindset. Yeah.
Questioning mindset.
Anyone else from audience? I know we've got colleagues joining us from almost midnight in probably Australia, and probably completely other way around in early hours of the morning in maybe in the North America. But please do, if you have any other questions. No. I have a quick one. I'm conscious of time. Just firstly, a comment, Hans. I'm not trying to be competitive, but you mentioned about sort of somebody from Delft University. I'd be very curious that sort of the paper that they're looking at into predictive maintenance. Actually, one of our students, recent graduates, Pablo, is actually on the line, and he certainly covered the topic of predictive maintenance and how it impacts on the traditional way we planned and designed maintenance, aircraft maintenance, if you like, the MSG3 methodology. And because I think that these things are coming, certainly it's happening, and certainly very appealing to airlines. And airlines think that, yeah, it's solving my problem, because my immediate problem is the reduced AOG, particularly downtime. And but at the same time, there's a much bigger picture that when you actually predict failure before it happens, and then what happens to those components when they're removed are still not very clear. So I'm having at times, we've just recorded, but I'll say it, I'm having battles or even very heated discussions sometimes with my own colleagues, because we have a new center called DARTEC. Everything is about digitalization, everything is about data analytics and so on. And as you quite rightly said, that sometimes those people, without having a full understanding, in-depth understanding what maintenance is, both heavy maintenance, line maintenance, and basically what does a person do? I guess, and we're certainly one of our students literally is about finish his thesis, who covered on all of this with some empirical evidence that it's not as simple as people make it.
Yeah.
And I'd love to share that with you as well. But I guess my question is that as the product gets more complex, more sophisticated, more integrated, and inevitably, the way I see it, this is driven very much by the operators, by airlines, because they almost want to take the human out of it and say, this is my interpretation, maybe exaggeration, but almost asking the OEM, the type certificate holder, to design and develop a product by pressing a button, and then it says yes or no, and then I can release the aircraft to service. Almost is, the individual is not expected to understand the system anymore because it's so complex. But that's my very simplified version.
That's one of the philosophies, they're pushing forward, yeah.
But I guess my question is that going forward, this kind of competency, because the competence-based assessment, as you quite briefly described, there's the technical piece, and there's also the other piece, which is quite important, the attitude piece.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you see this sort of in terms of particularly some of your initiatives? Where does the OEM have a role to play to actually, at the end of the day, they define what maintenance engineers, technicians, mechanics are trained, how they should be trained, because by regulations. So what's their role in this, in this sort of new complex future products, if you like?
Well, this is quite a complex question you put forward.
Sorry.
But no. I start with the first point. I must apologize. I told you I will invite you to the GA next week. I sent you the link.
That's
right,
okay.
so you can hook up and you can listen to Bruno directly, and of course we share the presentation, no question. I'm talking to him, and I'm sure he's also interested in exchange. So that's one thing. The other thing is the OEM. For the time being, I keep on discussing this with the OEM. So we need their original data, for setting up, and they come with a master training syllabus. And then we talk, and also we talk, okay, you either follow the master training syllabus from the OEM, and you buy, for example, you buy the data from the OEM, you get their approval, their IP rights to run the training, right? So at least, it's suspected that what you buy over there is complete and is up to date. But again, when it comes to the training, you always in training, you're limited. For example, I do my type training this year and I get my type training entry in my license. In 3 years' time, the aircraft I'm looking at, even it has the same number, same title whatsoever, is the same what I have in my license, may look completely different because of the technical changes. So what I'm keep on discussing with the OEM is, you need to give us support on the way you develop your product once it's in service and when it moves on. So this is not covered by any EASA regulation. You have it under the headline, under the umbrella of continuation training. And there is written, okay, the 145 now is responsible of, let's say, giving you an update on technology in case there is something. But I'm working in the 145 and I know how difficult it is to get, let's say, the latest information about the dash number you're operating out there on the line, to get this data early enough to put it either in a written format to update your licensed engineer, or to put up a training if it's so big that just a statement will not be enough. Right. So here we definitely need support from the OEMs. This is with the ongoing aircraft. And the next thing is what I keep on having in my fantasy is, OEMs, they have the technology, they have the information. And out there you have a network of training institutes. They have the pedagogical background. They have the specialists. Why don't they share a network for the benefit of both sides? Why does the OEM, for example, needs to, fight and hire trainers and look for that? Why don't we share this for the benefit of it in order to bring it forward? And I'm still, lobbying for that one within the community of EAMTC, and wherever you will meet me, you can hear this when I meet OEM or training institutes. So I think the OEM needs to come closer to the training institutes, and the training institutes needs to understand that they need to share it with them. Just like in the past, copy and paste some notes and then say, okay, I got an approved course and it moves on. This will be dangerous in the long run.
That's fantastic to hear, because I think, at the end of the day, all these key stakeholders, the designers, the operators, and also the maintainers, just you've got these, in fact, we did cover within operators, we also continue to discuss one of the IFA's sort of key focus was the robust interface between flight ops and engineering and maintenance. But if I may just about to maybe conclude, but one last point about the sort of, as well as the OEMs, as we all know, again, particularly large operators in some cases have got some complex fleet structures. And particularly, for example, even within a single fleet, you may have so many different configurations, lots of STCs on an aircraft, and that impacts on not only the maintenance program, but even the MEL of the operator and all those kind of complexities. So when a maintenance engineer or technician goes on an aircraft, so I think over the years, my observation is I always raise this as a potential issue, but over the years it got better and better. I can certainly recognize that. But at the same time, it is still a challenge within that complexity, that actually making sure that the guy is going to go and work on an aircraft 3 o'clock in the morning, that he has access to all that sort of, not only the OEM driven information, AMM and everything else, but he still has the right information, and he's aware that he's going to be able to access the supplements and all the sort of details, which is outside the norm. But many operators do have these complexities, because the MEL, customized MEL, is different than the MMEL. Customized AMP is different than the MPD. And the AMM, the actual, which is applicable to that aircraft, is AMM plus the supplements driven by the STCs. All of those kind of things. I guess it's still, again, a very much sort of robust sort of interface that the maintenance organization needs to have, but then also during the training, that these people have that continuing questioning mindset, that what I'm seeing in the AMM doesn't resemble what I'm seeing on the aircraft. I need to go and ask more information rather than signing it off.
This is really one of the challenges. I remember this because I was tackled by this once myself, just not looking at it proper at the time. That was right at the beginning. Luckily, nothing really happened. It was just an error. But the point is really, you need to have this understanding, as you just said. I'm walking to an aircraft type from one operator, and I walk to the same aircraft type to another operator. And there might be, even if it's the same system I'm looking at, there might be different layouts. And in the past, when I was, what I started with was my favorite was 747-200, right? There's 200 and then 300 and 400. And when I went in the -200, I could look in the cockpit as an avionic and I could tell you what type of system was behind it. That's not longer possible. It was just at that time, it was because of the switch layout and because of the display layout. This is not possible anymore. Now you have screens. You don't know what's behind it. So you need to be aware what's going on over there. And we have guys out there who have, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 aircraft types in their license because they passed the training and they passed the exams, right? And then all of a sudden, keep these aircrafts active. You can do it while you need to prove, like in the EASA regulation, that you execute the privileges, but you can do it like in a similar aircraft, in an aircraft group with similar technology. So it's more and more important that the attitude tells you, hey, how do I need to work? Where do I need to look? How do I understand the complexity? And I'm not only talking about the technology right now. Now I'm really talking about procedures, what you just said as well. This comes in addition, right? And even if somebody says red or green button, oh, it's green, it's all good to go. Maybe it's good with one operator, but not good with the other operator.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. That's really the challenge. Yeah.
Okay, are there any last minute burning questions or comments from anyone? Otherwise, we're just going to conclude. I'm just looking at, so we've got some good comments and thank you so much. And certainly, look, I think I really appreciate, Hans, for your contribution and for your time. And it's been, I think, great, and at least we've got something as recorded, and with your permission, hopefully we'll make it available.
Yes,
and,
please. Yes.
And what made me think is actually when we watch it, maybe in 5 years or 10 years time, what we would say about it, about the, oh, look, 5 years ago, competence-based training, ICAO doc was just released, and what is it now? So I certainly, maybe we would invite you back in a few years time, and we could have another good conversation like this one.
Cengiz, I hope we sit then, and after the meeting, we sit there somewhere in a pub or wherever, and share a glass of beer or no, not share, have a glass of beer together or a glass of wine. I'm really looking forward to, and thank you once more for the invitation. It's a pleasure for me to share my look with you. And as we said, the world is so small in aviation, and we need to join forces in order to bring it to the next level and move forward. So thanks again for having this opportunity.
Thank you, Hans. Thank you very much. It's a great contribution.
Thank you. Thanks everyone who's joined us from around the world as well, and so we make certainly the links and everything else available, and we'll continue these events and with other speakers as well. So yeah, we'll keep you posted, and once again, thank you for your interest, and thank you for your contributions as well. Thank you, Hans.
It was my pleasure.
Thanks very much. Thank you.